So before we dive in, would you like some white chocolate chip woke cookies? They're delicious. I made them myself. Hello, it is I, Namalsanen, coming to you from the Isle of not the United States. We are in the grips of a global pandemic. There are protests for police brutality popping up all over the world. There's been a rise in tyrannical far-right fascist governments all around the world, and yet only one author has been brave enough to stand against it all and say she will tolerate porn being sent to children. Hormones are the new antidepressant, and transition is the new conversion therapy. A lot has happened since the beginning of June, whenever Rowling decided that she was going to begin all of this madness. I apologize if I have like a random accent throughout all of this. It's been a long night. It's been a long week. I don't remember the last time that I slept, and I would really, really like a break from this COVID shit. There were various ways that I could reach out and, you know, talk to Rowling. I mean, after all, we have lots in common. I thought perhaps sharing a personal story, she might listen to what I have to say. After all, I am a natal woman. I got an F on my birth certificate, whatever that means. Originally, I'm a redhead. I know it does not seem this, but you know, that's what happens when you get a goddess possesses you. You get rainbow hair. That's a thing, right? It should be a thing either way. Survivor of domestic violence. I am also a survivor of sexual assault. Oh, when I was a single mother for... I know she's not going to listen to me because she's not going to listen to anyone. I've seen who she follows on Twitter, and I've seen the things that she's posted, and I'm very disappointed. Not to say that I'm a huge fan of Harry Potter. I mean, I only read Harry Potter because I didn't want to pay attention to math. Who wants to pay attention to math? Not to I. And Joanne, I'm just curious, as someone that hates trans women so much and hates misogyny and is a feminist, when are you going to write a book where your lead character is female?
Should we talk to Rowling about being transphobic?
I'm not transphobic! I just care about the children! I wouldn't expect you to know me. None of you do! You crazy trans activists!
I think she's gone off the deep end, guys.
Today I've decided the concept of fascist! I'm worried about getting sued, so I decided the concept of are a coward. I want to look at point 3 of J.K. Rowling's letter. Fascist! It is I, Ares, God of War. We are at war. It is TERF wars. That is what this is. Ares, there's no war. I mean, there is a war, but I know she called it TERF wars. Yeah, never mind. Never mind. I am here to defend J.K. Rowling. If it's not the God of War interrupting me, it's the cat. There is a war. A war. So, we are going to look at freedom of speech. Take that! It's going to make me drink myself stupid. Yes, you draw. What the fuck is a tra, Ares? Are you calling me a bra burner? Is this where we are? As in, trans rights activist. Aren't you triggered? We are going to look at freedom of speech. And I am here to defend freedom of speech. You're not gonna listen to a fucking thing I have to say, are you? No, of course not. Just a woman, just a Titan goddess. You are trying to silence. Now you are trying to silence me. I will allow you to dig your own grave. What I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss that there is no such thing as freedom of speech. We are going to discuss who gets silenced, and how Rowling has exercised her freedom of speech that is doing more harm than good and is definitely not going to save the children. Do you hear me? Isis, is it going to save the children? It is not going to save the children, that is. We are also going to be discussing the letter because you know what? It's trying to shut us all up. More so than under attack! This one.
I shall be a voice of reason against these lies. That is why I'm here.
All of that said, let's begin.
Part 1. The Myth of Free Speech.
The only myth is the radical left saying they support it.
I will mainly be discussing free speech as it pertains to the United States. I'm aware that every country has kind of different laws on what is free speech and what is hate speech. For example, Saudi Arabia, who has the rule that if you are a journalist and you are speaking out against the royal family, then you might end up in a body bag. And then you have Germany, which has far stricter laws than we do in the United States. I do not know the ins of the outs of all of the world, so we are just going to be talking about the United States, where I'm from, sort of, but I'm a goddess. You don't. That is the truth. In the US, I'm sure you've heard we have this little thing called the First Amendment, which says the government shall not pass laws to limit our freedom of speech. It also protects a couple of other things like freedom of the press, which Donald Trump does not really like right now. It protects freedom of religion, the right to peacefully assemble, like protest.
Gosh, you talk a lot. Muslimin, can't you just get to the point already?
And people can petition their government if they don't like a thing. In the world of Twitter, petitioning the government can be angry hashtags, angry comments to whatever it is Trump decides to tweet on the fucking toilet. Rowling is an absolutist whenever it comes to free speech, according to point number 3 in her manifesto.
I am always for free speech.
Which means she is totally okay with Donald Trump saying that you should just grab girls by the pussy. Rowling is all right with that because I guess with the free market of ideas, that's just going to be weeded out. Isn't that right, Terry's?
Whatever.
Recently, she was pleased to sign the Harper letter, but back in May, she had this to say to a woman who criticized her new children's book that is coming out.
Unless you want to hear from lawyers, you might want to rethink that tweet. I'm not wasting time arguing with willful misrepresentation of my views on transgenderism. Your timeline shows you're not big on truth, but making serious insinuations like this comes with consequences. More recently, on July 24th, Rowling's lawyers went after the children's publication The Day and forced them to do a payout and apologize over an article they wrote on June 10th in response to her transphobic tweets. Quoting from The Day, the article was critical of J.K. Rowling personally and suggested that our readers should boycott her work and shame her into changing her behavior. Our intention was to provoke debate on a complex topic. We did not intend to suggest that J.K. Rowling was transphobic or that she should be boycotted.
It might have something to do with the fact that the woman was trying to make a point of stating her name is very similar to a conversion therapist who was like, I have cured the gays by shocking their brains. Not at all problematic, Joanne. But that's okay. You managed to shut down a woman that was criticizing you. And you know, she did in fact have her lawyers contact the woman to force Miss Sperling to take the tweet down. What do you have to say to that, Aries?
That is her right. She is not denied. This woman can't say whatever she wants. Only there are consequences for her actions.
You are correct. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom of consequence.
Of course there are consequences. There are always consequences. There will be consequences against your actions.
It is just that Jo has the money to shut down critics who disagree with her. She's a billionaire. There is power with wealth and influence. It is a form of censorship that those lacking wealth and privilege cannot afford. Like myself, please don't sue me. Apparently being criticized online is where she draws the line.
She's getting death threats, slurs sent at her, calls to commit suicide, rape threats, and other vile things are thrown her way. These are all ways people are trying to silence her. It is a war!
It is not acceptable that she is receiving messages like that. I find all of those things to be repulsive and wouldn't wish them on anyone.
I feel a butt coming on.
There is no but.
But, I feel a butt. Okay.
I think many in the trans community, especially those who are activists and are open about who they are in public, they would completely agree. And even educators with a small platform like Lynn's Amir routinely get messages similar to this. Check out their TED Talk in the link above, and then maybe you can learn something about education whenever it comes to the LGBTQ community as a whole, especially in the pandemic where we're not going anywhere. And Aries, if you were a free speech absolutist, I suppose you would be defending those people.
Onto their laws against threats.
And you are right.
Whoa.
To a point. In the US, there are rulings that certain types of speech are not permitted under the First Amendment.
I know it. I read it in a book somewhere.
They include inciting people to commit suicide and acts of violence. There are also slander laws, perjury, and fraud.
I know how to read.
When it comes to obscenity, there's something called the Miller test, which decides if it is protected as well. Granted, the Miller test is the bare minimum of effort to censor, since it has to pass all three of the criteria, which is very difficult to do. So as you can see, freedom of speech does have limitations.
There is such a thing. You're making this up.
Normally, whenever people are saying they wish to fight for their First Amendment right, it is a red herring.
Red herring. Like, it's a delicious dried smoked herring.
No. The second definition. A piece of information that is meant to be misleading. Neo-Nazis like to say their freedom of speech is being taken away whenever people protest them opening their mouths or push against their ideas.
Don't argue with me. If it's not TERF dumb, you draw, it's neo-Nazi gibberish.
In Rowling's case, she's trying to say she and many other women are being silenced for wanting to have a civil conversation.
The essay can be persuasive and even convincing to those who know nothing about trans lives or the trans experience. A simple example is her statement that when you throw open the doors of bathrooms and changing rooms to any man who believes or feels he's a woman, and as I've said, gender confirmation certificates may now be granted without any need for surgery or hormones, then you open the door to any and all men who wish to come inside. That is the simple truth. There are no sources or even a news story linked to this happening. It's a long played out trope that is not only damaging to trans individuals, but to cis, or in her words, natal women. It moves the conversation from actual ways women and children are preyed on and twists it into a narrative of predatory men clutching their birth certificates, waiting in bathroom stalls to attack. It also ignores that there are trans men who would have to use the same space as natal women, which would make women feel uncomfortable, like Jamie talks about in this video essay with his fiancé. It's purposely misleading since she squeezed this statement between lines of how she wants to protect trans lives. Now, let's look at this open letter to J.K. Rowling from the nonprofit organization Mermaids, who work directly with gender-diverse children and their families. They cite several studies linked to various news outlets and sources to back their claims, and use 636 words to debunk Rowling's 61. It's easier to omit facts than to put them in. On Rowling's essay, she doesn't link to any sources, while all these bold parts in Mermaid's letter open up to a new source. On top of that, they are citing actual academic research, like this one, evidence regarding safety and privacy in public restrooms, locker rooms, and changing rooms, where it says, often cite fear of safety and privacy violations in public restrooms if such laws are passed. This study provides evidence that fears of increased safety and privacy violation as a result of non-discrimination laws are not empirically grounded. It's easier to tell lies than truth, and Rowling knows that. She's built an entire career on doing just that. Not all of us are muggles, Joanne, and need to be protected from your top-notch sources. Did the owls run off with your proof?
Rowling only wants to save the children. It's nice to know that you don't care.
Rowling, she's a very smart woman with a considerably large amount of wealth.
Yes, she's smart, but she was poor once. Did you forget about her being poor?
I understand. At one point she was poor.
Poor.
Shut up, Aries.
Freedom everywhere. That is why we are at war.
Shut up. I believe that Rowling is more used to praise than she is backlash.
How can you say she's not used to backlash? You're always saying that women are oppressed. You get a woman that agrees with you and you have to tear her down.
That said, Twitter can be toxic and has a lot of reactionary responses that are uncalled for. Even the discourse on the left can be toxic. With great platforms comes great backlash.
Yes, it was a backlash of wild, crazy trans activists.
And she's content to know that her Harry Potter brand will continue to grow her wealth because she's made damn sure a portion of the profits went to her.
I read books once. I've never read Harry Potter before, but I'm sure it's a fantastic story.
This is not something that authors who are in a marginalized group normally get.
Do not remember her being poor.
Good on you, Rowling. Since June, she's lost close to 300,000 followers.
Well, she gained a follower. I am now following J.K. Rowling. At least I will pretend I am.
Rowling does not have to worry about her job security or face the sort of discrimination that people in marginalized groups face. I doubt she even fears for her life, at least not in the same that Black trans women are, who are being killed at a disproportionate rate than anyone else. Even higher since Rowling's essay came out. There's been so many Black trans women and trans women that have died with Rowling saying it's okay to hate on them because, you know,
propaganda.
Penis. Tastes like pain.
Cancel culture is dangerous. I'm glad you agree with me.
No.
We are on a slippery slope to 1984.
Yes, we do appear to be going backwards.
I see that you are ignoring my book reference.
The slippery slope argument is also a red herring, one that is used to justify hate speech. Look, trans rights, which are not asking for special treatment, but to be given the same treatment as everyone else, have made a lot of strides forward.
My feelings are hurt. Not that I feel anything.
There's a lot more positive representation in mainstream media. In the UK, they have an Equality Act and a Gender Recognition Act. And the majority of the population in both the US and the UK support trans rights.
So many words.
It feels like we are going backwards.
Don't you ever shut up, lady.
Especially now that Rowling is doubling down. And her use of freedom of speech is now harming and silencing trans individuals again.
They were silencing her.
They weren't. No one silenced Rowling.
Don't you realize that's what's happening? Don't you? Don't you wish? Say that, children.
Some of us wish that she would be silent.
You say you fight for women's rights, but you don't. You know nothing about being a woman, even though you are. I know more about women than you.
Sometimes people need to shut up.
Happen to have dated goddess of love. We had a wonderful child together.
Aries?
Several. I don't remember any of them.
You are ridiculous. Most importantly, Aries, I'm hoping that you realize that a lot of us are just wishing that she would
Should
just
not be
shut
able to
up.
tell J.K. Rowling what to do.
I will tell you, people harassed her. But she's also created harassment campaigns against anyone who speaks out against her. Her right to freedom of speech is now mainstreaming transphobic misconceptions and signaling that it's okay to harass those who disagree with her stance.
Just because you're some, like,
Aries.
Titan goddess of memory, you think you know everything about what there is to be a woman?
Please. What people fail to see about free speech is it was never meant to be for the individual. It was intended to be for the crowd.
Part 2. The letter.
Hello, who's there? I'm back. Oh, hi, Pandora. Welcome back.
Hello, Pandora.
Did you check the mail?
Yes,
Did we get any?
and we did receive a letter.
Do I have any love letters?
I appreciate that.
We have received the letter.
We received a letter,
It's about a week old.
and
It's calling for justice and open debate. It wishes to cancel culture.
well, that doesn't make any sense.
Of course it makes sense. They're tired of being harassed on Twitter. And so they're asking for people of the lower class to stop calling them out whenever they do something that is disagreeable. I don't think that they're used to getting critiques. Maybe it's because they've spent far too long in the place that they are.
Under attack!
Aries, you'll be okay. There's no war, only in your head.
Please, have a seat.
Bob, do you mind if I take a seat? Thank you.
It's a call to bring people together. But
It says but several times. It's abstract thought. It thinks all speech is important. Well, it thinks their speech is important at least. It's not like it is asking anything new. Every week there's a discussion on cancel culture. It just seems a bad time to be doing it, all things considered.
Women talk. Find more interesting things on the internet.
There's several signatures. Margaret Atwood is one. It's also signed, of course, by J.K. Rowling and Jessie Singal.
well, did Steve Bannon sign it? Alex Jones, Jenny McCarthy, Jessica Bean, B.O.B., Tila Tequila, Louis C.K.
Of course not. It's a call for peaceful discourse with no plan. Only for people to be nice to the status quo of cis white heterosexual rulers of today's society. I guess they want us to know they're afraid to say things. Because if someone doesn't like it, there might be more people who feel the same way. It's all about making a stand that flat earthers, anti-vaxxers, and alt-right thinkers shouldn't be allowed in. You can, though, of course, keep the transphobia in. No discussion, of course, over the silencing of peaceful protesters. I hear in Portland, militarized federal officials are kidnapping people off the street and putting them in unmarked vehicles.
She's so witty. Oh my goodness, is she witty? Ah, yes, but what is ducking?
Oh, it's a form of torture from the 17th century. The chair is fixed on wheels so it could be turned into the water, dunking the person time and time again depending on what the sentence was. To keep disorderly women in line.
Ah, yes. I knew that. A pity it is no longer around.
Oh, it is. It just moved online. You're laughing at it right now, on Twitter.
I mean, it is well-deserved humiliation.
How?
Can you believe this coward decided to unsign the Harper's letter after finding out J.K. Rowling signed it? It's a coward's way, I tell you.
How?
Simple. It just shows how much of a bigot she is. She obviously agreed to sign the letter, but then when her followers got upset when her name was on the list, she pulled out of it. She bent to the cancel culture. She swears she wants to go against.
So you do not think it was misleading? They did not let her know who else signed it?
No. If you agree, you sign.
Who signs the letter is important because it changes the meaning of the letter by interpreting it for different audiences.
Come on, back me up here. Back me up here.
No.
If you agree, you sign. Right?
Yes.
The child listens.
Who signs the letter allows us to know who the audience is for.
There are words coming out of her mouth. I'm not sure if I agree with them. Mnemosyne. Translate.
It means the letter is transphobic.
You know, just like I said earlier, you think everything is transphobic?
They left off the signatures of prominent anti-vaxxers because they did not want their open debate to filter in. By having Rowling sign the letter, it shows that they're still willing to debate the lives of trans people and are willing to let false and misleading information flourish. Since a final list of names was not released prior to the letter's release, each individual who signed likely had a different idea of who it was intended to be.
Mnemosyne. Translate.
They did a bunch of shady ass shit.
Interrupting again to bring some words from the creator of the Harper letter, Thomas Charlton Williams, discussing shady-ass shit they did. In an interview with Rolling Stones, he is asked about journalist Glenn Greenwald and why he did not sign. Apparently, Greenwald was voted down by other co-authors, showing the open debate letter is just smokescreen bullshit.
Glenn Greenwald.
Yeah, we did. I would have had him on. Interestingly enough, he's become someone in the past few months that I've interacted with quite a bit on Twitter, and it's been cool. We really,
Yeah.
But like, I was outvoted on that.
Interesting. You see, this is interesting because I assume some of the reasons that you were outvoted on that was because of some of his things that were considered beyond the pale. And I'm not like, it's just not a gotcha.
No, I don't actually even remember. There were certain names that some people, there were just certain names that anybody wanted, and then it was like that, like the rest of the people didn't just know, and I don't even remember who it was.
There were bad faith signatures who weaponize free speech and free expression to shut down anyone who disagrees with them. Harper's letter didn't release the full list because they knew people would not sign off on it if they had.
I will not be pulled into your propaganda machine.
I mean, you do know the woman who asked her name to be removed is a trans woman. Remember our conversation that we had earlier wherever you said, this is wrong, people are shaming her and it's completely and totally out of context. Well, this is happening again, right? So Rowling signed a letter that we need to be nicer on Twitter or nicer on the interwebs, and you're laughing at the fact that she's being shamed. The very thing she was asking not to happen to her, she's doing once more. At a trans woman at that. Not to the English professor that has to be removed. You don't see how this is transphobic or problematic. Do I have to go into the basis of language? Actually, Boylan was the main person the other signatures attacked for wanting her name removed. That itself silences trans activists, and there is nothing heroic in shaming others who disagree. I felt like that was the intent of the letter. Boylan got more of a backlash for stepping out than staying in. How was it cowardly to follow her principles?
Because she did a thing! She did a thing! She went back back on her word. I will always champion free speech against this insane PC culture. They want to silence us all. They're going to. You'll see. You'll see. You won't be able to hear very much, but you will see. First they come for your free speech, and then it's all over. I don't know what it is. It is all over.
And that, Aries, is one of the many reasons why you and I will never get along. Of course she would stand for any language or movement that would exclude minorities or marginalized groups. A call for people to be nice and condemning activists who have been labeled as bad for wanting the world to be equal. You have a fear of change and a worry you are losing power by extending it to others. It's okay to not like change, and you know, I will always have hope. Enjoy. Take care, Namasanin. Thank you, Pandora. It's always nice to hear from you and see you, and thank you for getting the mail. That was very nice of you. I appreciate it. At least someone in this household has decided to help out a little bit. You know, Aries, you could do more than fight with me all the time.
She disturbs me.
All women disturb you.
I love women. Real women.
No, Aries, you're missing the point.
I'm not. I really do love women.
There is a conversation that could be had here on how to make activism more inclusive. People can step on each other's toes, and people who are new might say the wrong thing since they have not learned all.
Do you want to see my
language
list? I think I have it around here somewhere.
That's a conversation to have with other activists. Just to make an agreement on a code of conduct. There has to be a line drawn in the sand. There's none right now. Allow people to make mistakes, to grow and learn. This letter is not that.
Okay, not all. I love real women. Certain types of real women. I know what a real woman is.
Aries, do you ever shut up?
What? You're trying to censor me again? I can tell it. This means war. Where is my sword? Someone hand me a sword. Why do we have so many strange daggers just like all around the bookshelf? It is because this means war. These TERF wars have got to stop. All of it does. All of it. Shh.
No, you don't. You don't ever shut up.
It's stopping. I will join J.K. Rowling's army.
Okay. Well,
and we will stop this madness of free speech. Don't silence me. I will not be silenced. Don't look at me like that. If we take away free speech, everything's gone.
Well.
Yes, all of it.
we all have a trigger point whenever it comes to free speech. And you know, sometimes we do fall short of standing against others and going with the crowd. I know Rowling thinks that she's not going with the crowd, and she's really not going with the crowd. And so that allows her a chance to say, I am a target. This is it. This is going against free speech. But you know who else makes that argument? Oh. You know who else makes that argument now that I put the sword down? Neo-Nazis and KKK. We tend to believe that they're not good people. Sometimes the crowd is right. Sometimes the crowd is wrong. We all fall short of being perfect. I know that I have, and I have said transphobic things in the past, and I don't think Rowling is going to stop. Rowling is just like backing down in the middle of this pandemic. It's like, Rowling, please, put a mask on. Delete your Twitter. Go away go away for a while, and go away for a while, not come back with a like transphobic manifesto. Some of the things that Rowling tolerates, she uplifts women who call trans women blackface actors. I mean, numerous people have come out to support trans rights, and including like the cast of the Harry Potter movies, you know? But what she's doing is still mainstreaming transphobic speech. If you have a person of power say things that are controversial or say things that hurt people, right? Not on an emotional way. I'm talking about not on the individualistic way, but us as a society. If you have people say shitty things that people might be thinking in the back of their mind, right? That's letting them know that they can say the shitty things. Just FYI. Or you people who don't think that her speech is dangerous because she's just an author of fiction. Recently, Ohio Senator Langford used her essay to block the Equality Act, directly quoting from the essay saying, "To say in the words of J.K. Rowling this past week where she wrote, 'All I'm asking, all I want is for similar empathy, similar understanding to be extended to the many millions of women whose sole crime is wanting their concern to be heard without receiving threats of abuse.'" This is like absolute bullshit. Rowling, like Joanne, Rowling, Karen, I don't know what name we're going with right now. You're having women's rights taken away. This bill could really have helped us. Are you like saying like, I don't like this one thing because trans people might be allowed in bathrooms, and because trans people might be allowed in bathrooms, this whole bill is out the fucking door? You gotta take some and lose some. You can be transphobic all you want. It's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. Just keep the shit to yourself. Equality Act would have given more rights to women in the United States. Lesbians, gays, bisexuals, all of us in this big giant rainbow. It would also help Black and brown people of color. Like, I know that you really haven't mentioned very much of that other than, you know, your support for, I don't know what you support really, other that you hate trans people. But it would benefit like a lot of marginalized groups. You have one in England. It would be really great if we had one in the United States. Joanne's beliefs that kids are transitioning because it's a fad or a trend, or even that it's a new form of conversion therapy, which, you know, all of this is something that I will be covering next video. It harms children. All of this, it harms children. This is opening the door for conversion therapy to make its way back into the United States, which is the thing that none of us really want. And you know what? Yes, there are people who are trans that agree with her. They normally stick to just this like biological sex thing. Trump has a Black supporter as well. That doesn't mean he isn't racist. The language that Trump mainstreamed, the news organizations like Fox News have made its way onto a manifesto as well, for a man who happened to kill a whole bunch of people in El Paso, Texas. Technically, it was 21 Latinos, and, you know, the injuries were horrible. His manifesto, he used a lot of the language that Trump did. So to say that freedom of speech is not dangerous, we're totally fucked. Trans people have always been around. More are coming out because it's been okay to speak out. We have more trans representation in the media. Not always the best, but it's still there. It's coming there. We're going in a direction. Now that more people are talking, more people are coming out. Just because you didn't see them before doesn't mean they did not exist. Trans people understand more than anyone else what it's like to be silenced, talked over, as you said, because you are a woman. You've been talked over. So that's what makes you okay to speak about this. Joanne, who is so much of a feminist, is still only writing best-selling novels with a male protagonist. Joanne, Rowling, any human being watching this, one of my children is non-binary. And yes, before you ask, they know what it means. Having to watch my child before I 100% accepted them for who they are, beating their head against walls, pulling their hair out. Do you know how hard that is for a parent? As they're trying to fit themselves into either A or B, It's really fucking painful. And I've shared this with parents because I normally don't come out, my child is non-binary, just because it makes things awkward. And I'm a little bit of I'm a wimp. And I think that maybe if people met my child and I didn't have to explain everything up front, they could see how wonderful and loving that they are. And it's hard because I've had to have conversations with moms where those moms and those dads at that point too have told me, I'm not ready to expose my child to that. You want to know what else people used to say? There's an entire other group in the rainbow. I know you might not believe this. The gays and the lesbians, that was the exact same dialogue they used. We don't want it to spread. Could you imagine what lesbians went through whenever they were like, I would like to go into the space, and they were like, no, you can't because you're a lesbian, you might assault us. And parents in general going, I'm not ready to expose my child to that. Oh, your poor child. Your really poor child. That you're not able to pick up a book and read about it. It's so stupid. My non-binary kid can explain gender boxes and explain how difficult it is to be either a man or a woman in the world, just because whenever school does some sort of special activity, they don't know what box to go into. And they're continually told they cannot join in because they don't fit a box. Guess the last thing I want to know is are you afraid of your kids catching something? Some transness? This is where it all comes from. I try to figure out how people will come to that. And I don't mean to, I do kind of mean to accuse. Right? Because the people that I've run into within gender critical and with society as a whole, they tend to be people who has a personal investment, right? Either some hate within themselves or some hate that has to do with another child in their lives. Stay tuned for part 2, where I might let Aries off the couch and untie him.
My child is here. Go away. Go away, child. Go. What are you doing? Terrorist. Fascist.
Go away. Harper, come on.